Hello, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 3, The Best Exotic Nanite Hotel. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks, so I have to start with the spoiler warning for Lower Decks up to Season 5. Episode 3, if you have not seen this episode, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So far, I'm finding Lower Decks pretty good, which is less than I expected. I was expecting it to be awesome, and so, at least Season 5, and so perhaps I'm a victim of my own expectations, and perhaps, most likely, it will get awesome later on, because that tends to be the case with Lower Decks, where the end of the season is where it is best. But yeah, so far this episode, it was pretty good. Not great, but good. And yeah, that's what I can say about the season so far. It's fine. So, jumping into the episode. So, yeah, I didn't find it hilarious. And it was kind of run-of-the-mill, your typical, comedy, sitcom gags types things, particularly the gag of Boimler being afraid that they're using him as a canary and then he's overreacting, and obviously they're not actually trying to use him as one. That's like an obvious trope. Not that it's terrible, but it's a thing. But to me, the strength of this episode was easily the Jennifer and Mariner thing. Also, I love the moment in the episode where Jennifer says, Jernier. Something. She's like, Jernier? That was a nice little gag. So there was definitely funny moments in the show. But yeah, as far as character moments, like that's probably the strength of the episode, was the whole thing of Jennifer being like, oh hey babe, and acting like they're still she's still her girlfriend. But I think honestly I was hoping that the answer as to why Jennifer was doing this was more Star Trek-y. Like if she was from an alternate universe, or she had her brain examined, or she was had some virus or something, or it was a hologram or something like that. But it turns out that she's just fucking with her, and that to me was too easy of an. I don't know. That's it. She's just fucking with her, but it's actually good character moment for them, because she points out the character flaw in Mariner, and this is kind of in a way critiquing the end of episode 3 or season 3, the end of season 3, where we didn't see Jennifer and Mariner break up on screen, and it's sort of kind of poking fun of that, or at least sort of plugging that plot hole that and sort of taking advantage of that and using it to examine the characters of Mariner, particularly because it shows. I love the way Mariner's describing to her friends. It's like, oh yeah, of course I broke up with Jennifer. I was very clear with my silence and not talking to her and walking past her, which is not only funny, but it's also a good character beat. To show that, that Mariner is kind of, I don't know what the proper word for it, avoidance or something, or someone who just likes to avoid conflicts, and that's something I can relate to. I do have that issue myself, and is not good with conflicts, and so just tries to avoid and hope she gets the picture, but Jennifer kind of fucking with her for the fact that she never actually talked to her or confronted her or actually talked to her, expressed her feelings about it, and just acted like ignoring her is enough. And I'm personally against the idea of ghosting, and I will admit I have been ghosted before, and I think that is cowardly. If you don't want to talk to someone, just tell them to their face, just be upfront and say, look, I would rather not be friends with you anymore because of X, Y, and Z, rather than simply disappearing and ignoring them. And so I kind of can relate to Jennifer on that term. So, well, she ghosted me, so I'm just going to fuck with her and act like we're still together a year later. But I also like the fact that, at the end when they worked everything out and Mariner was apologizing, oh yeah, you're right, I should have confronted you, I should have, expressed my feelings, and it wasn't right for me to just try to avoid you and whatever, and that was really fucked up for me to do, and I'm kind of a messed up person. And Jennifer has a really good response, which is, you're messed up. I was pretending to be your girlfriend just to fuck with you. Because that's the other point. That is a fucked up thing to do. And so I think they're both in the wrong, even though I can kind of understand Jennifer's frustration. I'm also against people like outright fucking with people like that. Just messing with it. Playing the mind games and shit is something I'm also very much against. So they're both guilty. And so I like how they pointed that out at the end of the episode. Because if Jennifer was upset with Mariner ghosting her, she should have, again, been forthright and just confronting her about it rather than just fucking with her like this and pretending like they're still together. So yeah, I mean, I still kind of wish that they did a Star Trekian thing with that, but it was good character moments for them, and it was nice that they both got to understand each other in part on good terms, and Jennifer's being transferred, so that translates to not being in the show anymore. I don't think they just showed her in the background a little bit here and there in season 4, if I remember correctly, but they never tackled the fact that these two broke up. And so it's almost like the show kind of poking fun of itself for just dropping this and not addressing this and being like, okay, we need to address it and address why they were just never, confronted each other in this and have that confrontation. So it was kind of a plugging of the plot holes in a way, and not in a big way. But so that, as I said, it was the strength of the episode for me, even though I think that they were both being horrible people and they were both being stupid. It was good character moments, and for them to come to that realization, that they both came to a realization that no, what we both did is kind of fucked up, and looking inwards and realizing their own flaws. So that to me was the strongest sort of character moment of the episode. Now, the side plot or the plot of the weird nanite glob going through the resort. First of all, with the resort, to me that's not that interesting of a concept. I believe we've already done resort planets on Lower Decks before, and of course in Trek there's Ryza. There's even a reference to Ryza in this. One of the bars is called like Ryza or something or whatever. So they reference it. So resorts and plus we had that resort holodeck program in Voyager, which don't get me started on that. So resorts is a common thing in Trek, and I know it's part of Lower Decks to make fun of common things in Trek, but I believe they've done it before, and it's not done particularly well here. So most of the jokes involving like resorts and people relaxing or whatever, I didn't really find all that humorous. And the main storyline about them trying to track down the nanite thing, that wasn't particularly interesting. Even when Tindy and T'Lyn and Rutherford got eaten by the thing and it was rolling around. It was kind of interesting, the Mariner and Jennifer having to work together and sort of bitching at each other while they're chasing this thing. That was the interesting aspect of it. But the actual thing was just kind of, it's kind of whatever. And they had this side thing with T'Lyn being obsessed with this musician, and find out she meets the musician, he's obsessed with her because he's all about Vulcan philosophy. That seemed kind of unnecessary. A nothing burger, I think, is a term. It's kind of unnecessary, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure, fine. So all of that was fine, and we got a few moments with Tindy being all excited to be back, and that was great. But they didn't focus on that too much. That was fine as well. Then there's the Boimler storyline. And this was probably my least favorite aspect of the episode. Like, I thought it was interesting that Ransom... there's some of the jokes, though, with Ransom and Billups going back and forth about his alias. He was like Jeradine Manhandle or something. I can't remember. And then Ransom's like, no, you're not that. And then him refusing to be called that. Like, that was kind of funny. But other than that, so it was kind of interesting of Ransom, giving Boimler his shot and being like, oh, let's give him a chance. But the whole storyline with Jet beforehand being like, oh my God, he's using me as a canary, he's having me do all these dangerous things, and it was killing me, and he's just gonna use you. And then Boimler being freaked out that he's just gonna do the same thing to him and use him to do all the dangerous stuff and take all the... Yeah, I don't know. That's, to me, I think I mentioned before, this is kind of sitcom tropey to me. It's nothing really, it doesn't really feel Star Trek, and I think a lot of times Lower Decks will, as much as I love the show, they will do storylines that are just more sitcom-y than they are Star Trek-y. It doesn't seem to fit in Star Trek, and they just do it for obvious, trying to get the laughs, but it's not really funny, because I think Lower Decks is at its funniest when they do play off of Star Trek tropes. And that whole thing about I suppose you could tie it in, if you really tried hard, you could tie it into the red shirt cliche of the original series, but I think there'd be better ways to spoof off of that than this. This is too indirect if that's what they were going for. I'm not sure if it was. But, I just didn't like it, though. It was just because it was the obvious trope of Boimler thinking that they're using him as a canary, when obviously they're not using him as a canary. And so he acts a bit crazy and does some stupid things. I feel like they've done this with Boimler in the past several times before, where he thinks that something is happening when it's not really happening, and so he does some stupid and dumb shit because of it. It just felt tired. It didn't feel original. But that being said, I did like the jokes that they made whenever Boimler is like, I'm not a canary, and Phillips is like, yes, he's not a canary. What does that mean? Why is he saying that was funny. I will admit that. And then the whole thing with the Admiral, who was milking space whales, and he was sick of doing that. So I feel like they were doing kind of a spoof off of Heart of Darkness, Apocalypse Now kind of thing, that he was, trying to be like a Colonel Kurtz character, but it was spoofing it, so he was in charge of a resort or whatever, and he was just sick of milking space whales and wanted to do something worthwhile. Yeah, I didn't really appreciate that. I didn't really hate it, but it wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't particularly funny, especially when he was talking about milking the space whales. I didn't find that humorous at all, for me personally. So that whole thing was kind of a wash for me. And then at the end, when they did the reveal that the Nanite thing was actually an Intrepid class ship from a parallel universe, where they're microscopic in this universe and they're just trying to get back to their own universe, that also seemed like a big nothing burger. That just seemed, when they first revealed it, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then they explained it, and they used it as, the Admiral's he's no longer to be milking space whales, he's now gonna be in charge of trying to get them back to their universe. It makes sense why they made it an Intrepid class, because it's kind of Voyager-esque, where they need to trying to get back home. But anyway, and that seemed really unnecessary and kind of just thrown in there for no reason either. So, There were some laughs to be had in both storylines, to be fair. One of them I would liked less because it was too tropey. And also, I love the touches how you notice that Boimler has more facial hair this time. So I wonder if he's ever going to get a full-on beard by the end of the season, because it's obvious that he's trying to grow one, that he's trying to be like the other. But this didn't really seem to fit in his storyline of trying to be like more like a command level, because he was just being freaked out that the senior officers were just using him when they weren't. So I don't know. That seemed kind of unnecessary. But yeah, ultimately, I like the Jennifer stuff. I like that they finally tied up the storyline with Jennifer, because that did seem to just not be addressed flat out. I mean, Mariner called her out by, saying, like, look, you didn't believe me when obviously I wasn't lying. And Jennifer honestly pointed out that I was just with you because you were the bad girl or whatever, and that was attractive to me and it was fun, and that's all. It didn't really go beyond that. So I did know that from interviews with Mike McMahon that Jennifer and Mariner were not a really good pair, and that they were had a toxic relationship, which is something I didn't really pick up when I first watched it, but when I went back and watched it again, I was like, oh, I can kind of see that. I thought that their storyline in the DS9 episode was actually sweet and endearing, but then it was kind of fucked up, even in some terms, because she was just excited about the fact that Mariner was phasering all her friends, which is kind of fucked up. So I get what he's saying, that it was a bit of a not healthy relationship, and I love that they addressed that finally, full on, because they made it very clear in this episode that they were both kind of fucked up people, and it was not a healthy relationship, but also that they both kind of learned from that and grew from that, and Mariner acknowledged some of her faults, and so did Jennifer. So in that way, I thought this episode really worked, and there were some funny jokes thrown in here and there, but the rest of it was kind of just not all that interesting, especially the Boimler tropes of, oh, he thinks he's going to, they're trying to use me as a canary or whatever. That was, yeah, I could have done without that. But other than that, fairly good episode. So my rating for, what's this? The best, what's it called again? Hold on. The best exotic Nanite Hotel out of 10 is going to be, it's going to be a 7. Very good. It's close to an 8. I was thinking about giving this an 8 because I did really like what they did with Jennifer and Mariner, but I think everything else was just so inconsequential, and it just like the whole Talin being obsessed with the musician, or the microscopic intrepid class thing, or Boimler skiing and knocking into that monster guy and grabbing his back and saying, hey, you're grabbing my genitals, like that. All that stuff was kind of just unnecessary and wasn't really bad, but not good either. It was kind of just there, and so because of that, I don't think I can give this an 8. But I did really like the Mariner, the Jernier. What are they called? Jernier, I think it was. But anyway, I really liked that stuff. That was good, and it was good that they finally tied up the storyline. So yeah, 7 out of 10 for me. So that is it for my review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5 Episode 3. We'll be back next week to cover Season 5 Episode 4. In the meantime, I am covering Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7 and Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 2, one episode at a time. You can check out my channel for that and many other reviews. I just dropped my review for Agatha All Along, a really good show. If you've seen that show, you can check that out. And yeah, many other stuff as well, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.